Welcome back to your daily bedtime stories. Tonight's story is The Egyptian Cinderella by Shirley Clément. Another story set in an African country. Long ago, in the land of Egypt, where the green Nile River widens to meet the blue sea, there lived a maiden called Rhodopis. When she was still a small child, Rhodopis had been stolen by pirates. She was snatched from her home in Greece, taken across the sea to Egypt, and there sold as a slave. Like the Egyptian servant girls, Rhodopis went to the water's edge each day to wash clothes or to gather the reeds that grew along the riverbank. But Rhodopis looked different from the Egyptian girls. Their eyes were brown, and hers were green. Their hair hung straight to their shoulders, while the breeze blew hers into tangles. Their skin glowed like copper, but her pale skin burned red beneath the sun. That was how she got her name. Rhodopis meant rosy-cheeked in Greek. Rosy Rhodopis, scoffed the servant girls, hissing her name between their teeth. Rhodopis pretended not to hear, but she blushed rosier than ever. Although her master was kind, he was old and liked to doze beneath a fig tree. He seldom heard the servant girls tease Rhodopis. He never saw them ordering her about. "Hurry, Rhodopis," they would shout at her. "The geese are in the garden eating up the onions. Mend my robe. I'm hungry, Rhodopis. Bake the bread." Rhodopis always hurried to do their bidding, for the Egyptian girls were household servants, and she was only a slave. Rhodopis found friends among the animals instead. Birds ate breadcrumbs from her hands. She coaxed a monkey to sit upon her shoulder, and charmed a hippopotamus with her songs. It would rise its big head from the muddy water and prick its small ears to listen. Sometimes, when her chores were done and the day had cooled, Rhodopis would dance for her animal companions. She twirled so lightly that her tiny bare feet scarcely touched the ground. One evening her master awakened to see her dance. "No goddess is more nimble," he called out. "Such a gift deserves reward." He tugged his chin whiskers, thinking, and then declared, "You shall go barefoot no longer." Her master ordered a pair of dainty slippers made especially for Rhodopis. The soles were of real leather, and the toes were gilded with rose red gold. Now when Rhodopis danced, her feet sparkled like fireflies. The rose red slippers set Rhodopis more apart than ever. The Egyptian service girls were jealous, for they were clumsy sandals woven from papyrus. Out of spite, they found new tasks for her to do, keeping Rhodopis so busy she was too tired to dance at night. One evening, Kipper, who was chief among the servant girls, announced, "Tomorrow we shall sail for Memphis to see the Pharaoh. His Majesty is going to hold court for all his subjects." "There will be musicians and dancing," said another girl, eyeing the red rose slippers. "There will be feasting," added a third. "Poor Rhodopis, he must stay behind," Kipper jeered. "You have linen to wash, and grain to grind, and the garden to weed." The next morning, just as Ra, the sun, was climbing into the sky, Rhodopus found the servant girls followed them to the river bank. Kipper wore a necklace of blue beads. Bracelets jingled on the wrists of the second. The third had tied a many-coloured sash about her waist. Although Rhodopus wore a plain tunic, on her feet were the rose-red slippers. "Perhaps they will let me come along to see the Pharaoh after all," she thought. But the 3 servant girls pulled their raft around the bend of the river without giving Rhodopus a backward glance. Rhodopus sighed and turned to the basket piled high with the dirty clothes. "Wash the linen, weed the garden, grind the grain." She slapped the wooden paddle against the cloth in time to her song. The hippopotamus, tired of so dull a tune, pushed out the reeds and splashed into the river. "Shame!" cried Rhodopus, shaking a paddle. "You splattered mud on my beautiful slippers!" She polished the shoes with the hem of her tunic until the rosy gold glistened in the sun. Then she carefully put them back on the bank behind her. "Wash the linen, weed the garden," Rhodopus began again, when suddenly a shadow fell on the water. Rhodopus jumped up. A great falcon, the symbol of the god Horus, circled in the sky with wings spread so wide that they blotted out the sun. "Greetings to you, proud Horus," Rhodopus murmured. She bowed her head and felt a rush of air on the back of her neck. When Rhodopus dared to lift her eyes, she saw the falcon soar away. Dangling from one of his talons was one of her beautiful slippers. "Stop!" she pleaded. "Come back!" But the bird did not heed her. He flew toward the sun until he was no more than a dark speck against the gold. Rhodopus bit her tongue. One shoe was worse than none at all. Now she'd have to dance like a stork, hopping on one foot. And even the monkey would laugh. Rhodopus tucked the slipper into her tunic and returned to her laundry, salting the river with her tears. After Rhodopus had lost sight of the falcon, the mighty bird followed the course of the Nile to the city of Memphis, to the square where the Pharaoh was holding court. There the falcon watched and waited. The Pharaoh's name was Amasis. On his head he wore the red and white crown of the 2 Egypts. The double crown was heavy and pinched his ears. He preferred driving his chariot fast as the wind to sitting on the throne. Amasis yawned. At that very moment the falcon dropped the rose-red slipper onto his lap. The slipper was so bright that Amasis thought it was a scrap of the sun. Then he saw the falcon wheeling overhead. "The god Horus sends me a sign!" he exclaimed to the Pharaoh. He picked up the rose-red slipper. "Every maiden in Egypt must try this shoe. She whose foot it fits shall be my queen. This is the will of the gods." Amasis dismissed the court, called for his chariot, and began his search at once. When the Egyptian servant girls arrived in Memphis, they found the throne empty and the streets deserted. They were so angry on their return that even seeing Rhodopus without her rose-red slipper did not please them. "Slaves are better off barefoot," snapped Kipper. The Pharaoh journeyed to distant cities. He tracked the desert where pyramids tower over the sand, and climbed the steep cliffs where falcons nest. The rose-red slipper was always in his hand wherever he went. Women and girls, rich or poor, flocked to try on the slipper, but none could fit it into so small a shoe. The longer Amasis searched, the more determined he became to marry the maiden who had lost the tiny slipper. He summoned his royal barge and vowed to visit every landing along the mile. The barge was hung with sails of silk, trumpets blared, and oarsmen rowed to the beat of gongs. The din was so dreadful that when the barge rounded the bend in the river, Rhodopis fled in alarm, but the servant girls ran to the water's edge. "Now we will see the Pharaoh!" cried Kappa. Amasis held the rose-red slipper. "Whoever can wear this shoe shall be my queen." The servant girls knew that shoe, and knew its owner too. Yet they clapped their hands over their mouths and said nothing. If one of them could wear it. First Kappa, then the others tried on the slipper. Each cramped her foot and curled her toes and squeezed until tears ran down her cheeks. Still her heel hung over. "Enough!" said Amasis wearily. He would have set sail again had he not chanced to see Rhodopis peering through the rushes. "Come," he commanded, "you must try this rose-red slipper." The servant girls gawked open-mouthed as the Pharaoh kneeled before Rhodopis. He slipped the tiny shoe in her foot with ease. Then Rhodopis pulled its mate from the folds of her tunic. "Behold!" cried Amasis. "In all this land there is none so fit to be queen." "But Rhodopis is a slave!" protested one of the servant girls. Kippa sniffed. "She is not even Egyptian." "She is the most Egyptian of all," the Pharaoh declared, "for her eyes are as green as the Nile, her hair as feathery as papyrus, and her skin the pink of a lotus flower." The Pharaoh led Rhodopis to the royal barge, and with every step her rose-red slippers winked and sparkled in the sun. The end. Sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite.